A major Cloudflare outage has taken place today, and that has knocked several global platforms offline. And we're talking about the likes of X and ChatGPT, Perplexity, Letterboxd, all of them got affected. So users across the world, they have suddenly found their pages refusing to load. Cloudflare, of course, throwing up error screens instead of the page that you've kind of clicked on. But Outage Tracker Down Detector has shown complaints spiking all through the afternoon today, everything from 503 errors to broken logins and dead DMs. So for millions of users, large parts of the internet simply went dark. Let's put this in context. Why exactly has it happened? What does it mean? Our digital editor, Nazim Khan, joins us in the studio to explain to us what went down. Nazim, good to have you with us, but explain to us what really went down, because you're seeing so many of them affected all at once.
Yeah, thanks, Vikram. So the exact cause of the outage is not yet known. Cloudflare has said that it's investigating the issue. It's sort of early to speculate, I think, but it's possible that this could be a CDN issue. CDN is one of Cloudflare's most important services. It's basically content delivery network, which basically it's like a server that stores all the data, all the content. For example, the videos that you see or the posts that you see on X, all of that will typically be stored on Cloudflare. Mm-hmm. Now, storing that data on Cloudflare means that Cloudflare is able to deliver it much faster. Right. That's why companies use Cloudflare. But the problem is that if Cloudflare goes down, all the associated services could get affected.
So, since we're talking about this large an outage, I mean, how big is really this outage? This kind of thing, how often have we seen it in the past? So if you can put that context to it.
I think anecdotally speaking, the levels of outages that we've seen recently, there's definitely been a spike. Last month, there was a fairly large AWS outage, mm-hmm. Which affected large parts of the internet. But it's difficult to quantify in terms of whether there is a very clear spike, but anecdotally, definitely there is a problem in terms of, because it basically just outlines or highlights the risks of having large shared infra. Because if the entire internet is dependent on certain services, be it AWS or Cloudflare, it just highlights that the entire internet could typically be addressed.
So the vulnerabilities do exist when there is so much reliance on a few of them. Absolutely. In terms of the infrastructure players. And of course, we're talking about one such. Let's bring in cyber expert Ritesh Bhatia as well into this discussion, along with Kanish Gaur, the CEO of Athenian Tech. He's also a cybersecurity expert. Let's deep dive into this Cloudflare incident. It brings up certain important issues. Kanishka, why does a single outage, the kind that we're talking about at Cloudflare, how has it broken so many unrelated apps around the world?
See, Cloudflare acts as the first line of defense, basically safeguarding web applications from attacks. So it's web application firewall is what safeguards against cyber attacks. Now, if this layer goes down, all these applications could get impacted. So that's the first line of defense which is getting impacted. And I would remind, this is similar to what CrowdStrike incident happened, where particularly we saw the CrowdStrike systems not working. So it's a similar thing, I would call it. There could possibly a cyber attack. I would not call it a CDN-based attack. It could also be a backdoor, or it could be systems going down. So it's very early to suggest what has really happened, but it's basically the front line which safeguards websites, multiple applications against breaches or possible DDoS, distributed denial of service attacks, primarily looking at layered defenses. So if the first line of defense goes down, then these applications can be hacked. So if Cloudflare is getting impacted, all these applications will get impacted.
I want to ask Ritesh Bhatia as well, if this is a DNS issue, or is it a routing issue, something deeper in the internet's backbone when you're trying to figure out, because we don't have an exact explanation like Nazim was pointing out as well. Where do you think the problem is this time at least?
Yeah, I think the problem is with the communications. Being an incident response expert, I've always said that, such incidents are going to happen. Like wherever there is a tech, there are going to be glitches. It's like that. But then what is very important is what is the communication that is put out. Like right now, everyone is speculating. Like Kanishk is saying it could be this attack. Somebody could be saying it could be the CDN. Isn't it the company's responsibility to come out and say, guys, listen, this is the issue. We are now resolving it. Like, so far we have understood whatever it is. there was a certain spikes that they faced in a particular data center, which of course they could have found it out, much earlier through the tools and all those. But at every point of time, what they could have done is like, now also when I was going through their X timeline, there has been just no response from them. They're just not like, telling the world what it is. I think every customer has the right to know as to what I may not be a direct customer, but I'm definitely a customer for X. So I have that right to know exactly what is happening. Now we are talking about down detector, because that is the first website people go to see if the company is down or whatever. Why should I be going to down detector to check? Firstly, by the way, Vikram, the funny part is even down detector uses Cloudflare services, so people couldn't even log on to down detector also. So here the thing is, I don't want to go to down detector. X should tell me that, listen, we are down, or of course, I can't go to X, so it can't even tell me. But even those guys like Cloudflare can say that here we have this particular issue. While we are investigating it, we want to assure you that we will be back in an hour or 2 or 24, whatever it is.
Communication is very important. There's no doubt about that. One has to concede that point. But, today's outage, it also shows that the internet seems to be over-dependent on a few big infrastructure players, like I was starting to discuss with Nazim. You agree with that, right, Nazim?
Absolutely. So the question is there a large concentration risk here, be it in terms of a cloud or CDN or any DNS or any of the services? I'm told Cloudflare has a 30% market share, for example, in the CDN market, and for cloud services, be it Amazon or Google. So is there, or Azure for that matter? So is there a concentration risk here, and can it, is there a fix to this? People talk about decentralized services. So could that be something? I think that's something that our experts can.
Yes, certainly. Kanishk, you want to take that on? Is there a concentration risk that we are facing right now, which is why we are seeing so many of them collapse all at the same time?
Yes, I think there is a monopoly of certain players. We saw CrowdStrike. We are now seeing Cloudflare. We are seeing AWS. So the monopoly of these companies obviously creates more issues, and their own resilience is coming into the question in a big way. Because if these platforms aren't resilient, then the larger industry can suffer. And what about the consequences? What is the level of assurance these companies are providing if they go down? So one has to go beyond the monopolistic markets and also have some certain competitors. So that's the key thing, right? When CrowdStrike got impacted, billions of dollars got impacted. And today we are saying a similar thing with Cloudflare. So I think time is right to look at alternatives, not just have one US company which has complete control over one market and a monopoly of 90-95%. And that is what we have seen so far, right? You have to look at alternatives. And even if in India we're talking about, we will have to look at our own startups who can replace some of these global giants and then provide the resilience.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That said, my follow-up to that is how do Indian companies typically achieve the kind of scale that will be required to challenge something like an Amazon or AWS or even Cloudflare?
Ganesh, you want to take that?
It's not about challenging. See, if China can build up and allow their companies to support their local markets, let's talk about meeting those needs. If we can have Zoho, which can compete with Salesforce, I'm sure we can have a competitor to Cloudflare or CrowdStrike. It is only about seeing that vision, right? If the founder of Zoho can do it, I'm sure there are other businesses which can also be replicated. So let's look at the way forward on how we can create more ecosystem and have more dry powder, venture capitalist funding or R&D funding for some of our own businesses in India. And I'm sure, I think a lot will come out. You can also look at companies like, Secure Tech, Quick Heal. That's a fantastic company which India has. So how do you take these companies and meet the local market requirements, right? Sovereignty. And there are plenty of examples from China. Look at Baidu. If China can create Baidu, Alibaba, I'm sure India can create some of our own.
Well, I mean, that is the hope. But in the time being, and perhaps you can take this, Ritesh, do these platforms lose data or do they face security risks when you have an outage like this? Because one has to figure out how to deal with an outage of this nature.
Well, Vikram, it all depends upon the kind of, why that outage was happened. Was it an attack as such, or was it an outage which actually happened because of a particular technical glitch as such? Now, to the best of my knowledge, with whatever I have read so far and whatever Cloudflare has come out and said, it looks to be more like of a glitch. And when it is a particular glitch at that point of time, we are not really looking at like a loss of a data, because this is not like really a breach or a hack and other kind of things. Moreover, all these data is also like first there with, with the company themselves. Like X would be having the data. So Cloudflare being a DNS provider, being so it's more like a gatekeeper. It is more like a gatekeeper, and anybody which is coming from outside, it just checks whether this particular person is supposed to come inside or not. So this is how Cloudflare typically works. So it's more of a
Right.
gatekeeper.
But Ritesh, you started out by saying that, communication needs to be better. And now we've got a word coming from Cloudflare. They're saying that the fix has been implemented. They believe the incident is now resolved. This is what we are getting on Bloomberg. So, this is the word that we are getting, but we're still not getting clarity on why that problem has taken place.
Exactly. They haven't said that. See, again, it's a failure of the communication, right? They have come up with a particular thing. They're saying, okay, it's been resolved. But what really happened? Do you want people just to speculate as such? So, so this clear communication, I think, is the most important thing whenever companies face certain incidents. Vikram.
Now the question is, what should companies do immediately after like a global outage of this nature? Should they check their system? Should they patch? Should they change configurations? How exactly should they go about it?
No, they need to go on to investigations, and this has to be like, I'm pretty sure this will be around about like a 3 months of investigations, or even 6 months of investigations. They need to check what exactly happened, and what could have been done. What went wrong, fine, you now know about it. But what could have been done at that point of time? So when we were talking about CDNs and all that, so why isn't it like way too distributed? So let's say even for X, you could have that particular server for the Indian users just in India, so that even if it is via the, even if you're a gatekeeper, you're routing me to the Indian ones, and I'm at least able to see it.
Sure.
So something like this, these guys will have to work on.
Well, certainly. Now, today's Cloudflare outage seems to be this very sharp reminder of how much of our digital world depends on this handful of invisible networks, and how quickly everything can grind to a halt when one link snaps. But thank you for putting the context on this. Our experts, Kanish Gaur, Ritesh Bhatia, Nazim Khan, our very own digital editor, thank you very much for joining us on this comprehensive look at what has gone down.